seen that dramatic video of hundreds of birds literally falling from the sky into a neighborhood.
What on earth was going on?
That's a dead bird. And it's just floating in the air. No strings, no nothing.
Let's have some fun with it. Maybe it is a glitch in the Matrix.
So simulation theory generally refers to a hypothesis proposed by Oxford philosopher named Nick Bostrom back in 2003, I believe. That's this idea that the universe that we as humans know, that humanity, this Earth that we live in, is actually an artificial construct made, generally explained in some kind of computerized virtual reality, a virtual simulation. Extrapolating from what we do now as humans, we have our computers, the 21st century technology, rapidly advancing from where we were less than a century ago.
And it's important to understand, it's not that we are in a simulation in a metaphorical sense. It's not that we could sort of think of the universe as if it were a digital computation or a cellular automata, that kind of, it's that it would be a simulation in the literal sense, and that there would be some very intelligent individuals in some advanced civilization that would build a computer and then run some program on that computer, and we would be patterns inside that program.
Simulation theory is a growing idea through the modern conversation and cultural landscape, and it's being proposed especially by very technologically advanced people, your Silicon Valley types, your billionaires, your Elon Musks, or your pop sci people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, etc. But yeah, it's being proposed by that group, and it's actually coming to the point where people are saying that they believe that within a few decades, perhaps, we might be able to empirically, evidentiary prove that the world is a simulation. And if you do that, you've proved that the world is a simulation, is a construct created by an external source.
The strongest argument for us being in a simulation, probably being in a simulation, I think is the following. 40 years ago, we had Pong, like two rectangles and a dot. That was what games were. 40 years later, we have photorealistic 3D simulations with millions of people playing simultaneously, and it's getting better every year. The games will become indistinguishable from reality. Indistinguishable.
You know what? Probably because they just think differently. Because with their intelligence, they're able to think outside the norm or think outside the box. Henceforth, a couple years ago, Elon Musk did want to send people to Mars, and as I recall, he wanted to send people to Mars by this year or 2025, so somewhere in there. So he thinks outside the box. Plus, he was going to leave them there, so that's also that.
If you found out you were a simulation and you woke up like Neo, then you have a physical body and there is a way to break out of it. However, if you're a data stream in somebody's computer, then once you break out of that, technically you'd cease to exist. So you'd have to be really careful about that.
You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
If it were a simulation or not, how does that affect anything? How does that change my life? How does that change my career or my relationship with my partner or my family or the food I like? It doesn't. Yeah, even, we can say there's no free will. Everything's deterministic, which I personally kind of believe. I think free will is an illusion. But I also don't think it's helpful to have these endless thought experiments about, okay, what if free will is an illusion, so what? What does that help? What does that prove? What is real? What is true? Those are just words we made up. Something that is real or true if we decide it is.
If I figured out that I was living in a simulation, I would be a piece of shit. Because I've been nice my whole life, and I want to be a dick for a little bit, so I'm gonna keep going. I would fuck shit up. I'm talking like bank robberies, but like wholesome bank robberies, like I'd give money back and stuff like that. I'm talking like I would rob places, but like bakeries, so I could have food. I would just do some stupid stuff, just because I know, when I wake up, it's not me, I'm good, I'm chilling.
So if I find out I'm in a simulation, I don't care, because at the end of the day, I'm still me. It doesn't change anything. So, I mean, Why does it matter if I'm a simulation or not?
And when it comes to things like the simulation theory, it's not a theory. Scientific theory is something that you can manipulate in a laboratory. Scientific hypothesis is like a what if. So we're dealing with a hypothesis. Like I said, if you can't do anything about it, then it's, for all intents and purposes, reality anyway.
Theory, in a scientific context, it's equivalent to law. That people say, oh, that's just a theory, and they use theory as a synonym with hypothesis or guess, and that's what it's become in modern diction. Theory does just mean hypothesis or wild guess. A theory is just something that we have proven to the furthest extent possible with our current scientific knowledge that's explained through a paragraph or a sentence. Whereas a law is actually exactly equivalent, it's just shown in a formula. So Newton's laws, they are laws not because they're more or less true than the theory of evolution or the theory of gravity, but because they're shown with an equation and an equal sign, whereas the theory of evolution and gravity, etc., you can't explain those with a math equation. You have to explain that with a sentence.
I don't know, certain things are just kind of like shown up in life. You never know like how they got there, what happened to them, how they were created. Like, how was a bird born? Do you know? I don't know. Because they just kind of like appear. Like, I don't. So I get it. Some things just appear and nobody's gonna question what happened.
And again, I'd have to ask, what's the simulation's purpose? What's its function? What need does it serve by keeping us all in a simulation? Am I a computer program, or am I some being that's being fed false information?
Whenever you're listening to any source of information as a human, you gotta factor in what are the motivations of whoever's speaking it. That if someone is proposing something or denying something, what is their benefit either which way? That, news companies' modus operandi is they generate money by having people watch the news for as long as possible. So you got to filter what a news company says through that lens, and same thing for anything else.
One-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish things simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
So you mean there's people that actually believe that? Like dead ass? We're in a simulation, right? If I have the ability to maneuver everything I want, right? Why would I choose to be the person I am now?
I think more people start to believe that life's a simulation just based off of experiences, being like, there's no way that this stuff happens more than once or to people, or they'll see videos people can't explain or whatever it is, and they always jump to those conclusions. But lately, I feel like the conclusions have been more of a real answer than the guessing of like the scientific answers would be. Since most people right now don't tend to have any answers for anything really, so we're all like, fuck it, we'll guess.
I would definitely go about my life differently, but I'd question it.
If I found out that my life was actually a virtual simulation, I would probably do whatever I wanted. I would probably do everything I could to break the laws of physics, so to speak, in this world, so that I could live whatever adventure I wanted to in any way I wanted to. There would really be no moral compunction against doing the most insane, bizarre things, because it's just a simulation. There are no repercussions in the long run.
Like, think about it. Think about it in its highest form. I would be Iron Man, or even better, I'd be Spider-Man, right? Because then at least I still have some sort of presence to I'm still grounded. The only difference is I have superpowers. I mean, isn't it the same concept of like when you're rich, you really change as a person?
If it's true, I want to meet the people who designed this, just because you could have made something so much cooler. Not this, whatever we're doing now. But, sometimes I don't, because it's like, everything feels real, but then again, you don't know if it would feel real or not until you broke that wall. So it's kind of always like a guessing, yes or no kind of thing.
I always wondered that, whenever I leave a room or something like that, everybody just turns into ones and zeros. It's like I'm like a main character in this video game that we're playing. So it's kind of like the same thing.
I don't know. I'd probably figure out a way to make life interesting and like more fun, because life is not fun.
I'd be mad because it's unfair. Like, why do I have to go through this bullshit?
I wouldn't be too surprised, but I think I would feel hurt because my whole life has been a lie.
And yeah, it's fine. It doesn't change the nature of your life. It doesn't change your work. It doesn't change your relationships with your friends and family. It doesn't change what it means to be a good person. I think always just follow your heart, do what you know is right. Search for truth, but the trouble with having an open mind is that people will insist on trying to put things in it. So always have a healthy amount of skepticism, no matter who is talking, very much including myself.